3:15 p.m., January 2nd, 2026. The 1,200 square foot condo in the Chicago suburbs that I'd been paying a mortgage on for 8 years felt strangely stifling, even though the AC was set to 20 degrees Celsius. The early January sun poured through the big window and landed right on David's face, the man I'd called my husband for the past 10 years. He sat on the gray leather sofa I'd bought with my year-end bonus in 2022, feet up on the table, idly spinning the wedding band that had gone dull because he rarely ever took it off in front of me. Beside David sat Lauren, the divorce attorney he'd hired for a rate that was definitely no less than $5,000 an hour. She wore a fitted black suit, her hair in a crisp professional bun, and glossy red heels that looked freshly polished. She stared at me with that "the prey is already trapped" look, while David grinned, the half smile I used to be addicted to, and now could only see as fake and disgusting. On the walnut coffee table sat a stack of paperwork about 30 pages thick, something David had put together the week before. The title was bold: Petition for Divorce and Division of Marital Property. "Sweetheart," David started, voice syrupy, and I knew it was an act. "I know this is hard for you, but we're out of love. I want to handle this fast and civil. My offer is very fair. I keep the house. You keep the remaining credit card debt and that old Honda Civic. And I'm even being generous. I'll leave you $100,000 in divorce support. Paid out over 5 years. $100,000. Over 5 years. That was less than $1,700 a month. Less than what I used to spend on groceries each month when I was feeding the whole family." I looked David straight in the eye. He didn't blink. He truly believed I would sign without a fight. Because for the last 10 years, I'd been the one carrying everything. I was the one working overtime until 2 a.m. to pay the bills. I was the one skipping lunch so I could put money toward our child's tuition. And him? He just sat there complaining. "The company's behind on payroll. The project failed. The economy is tanking." Lauren slid the stack toward me. "I suggest you sign today," she said, like she was doing me a favor. "If this goes to court, with your current financial situation, more than $450,000 in mortgage debt, no separate assets, you'll walk away with nothing. David is even willing to help cover some of your old debt." I lowered my eyes and pretended to read. Page 8. The list of marital assets. The house was in both names, but the $600,000 mortgage loan had me as the primary borrower. The 2015 Civic was in my name. Savings account, $18,000. The money I'd scraped together from side jobs. No other accounts were listed. They thought I was broke. They thought I'd beg on my knees for him not to take the house. They thought I was the idiot who'd been fooled for 10 years and never noticed. But they'd made a fatal mistake. A mistake that started in 2016. The year David was truly unemployed, and the year he signed one piece of paper that would now become the bomb that blew up everything he had. If you've ever been betrayed by the person you slept beside, ever carried an entire family while that person was secretly wealthy, ever sacrificed your whole youth just to be repaid with contempt, pause for 1 second, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications right now. Because what I'm about to do in the next 30 minutes will be the most expensive lesson in karma David has ever received. To understand why David's arrogance today was so pathetic, you need to know how our story really began. 10 years ago, in 2016, David and I got married when we were both 28. Back then, I was the chief accountant at a logistics company in downtown Chicago, making $85,000 a year. Comfortable money. David was unemployed after his first startup failed. He'd once been a talented programmer, But after he got fired from his old company for not being a cultural fit, he spiraled into constant complaining and gaming until 4 a.m. I loved David because he used to be romantic, writing poems, cooking, dreaming out loud about a rich future. I believed that if we worked hard together, everything would be fine. And I worked hard, really hard. In our first year of marriage, we took out a $600,000 mortgage to buy this place. David's credit score was terrible then, more than $50,000 in credit card debt from his startup days. So the bank required me to be the primary borrower. David was only a co-owner. To get approved for that much money, David signed a stack of financial power of attorney documents for me. The right to access any bank accounts in his name, unlimited transfer authority, even the right to open a joint account if needed. He signed without reading carefully, only saying, "You handle it all. I trust you." At the time, I thought it was trust. Now I know it was irresponsibility. After we bought the house, David found freelance programming work, but the pay was unstable. He always complained, "Clients pay late. The project got canceled. The market is rough." Meanwhile, I worked overtime, took side accounting gigs, and even delivered food at night to keep up with the mortgage. Some months I worked 18 hours a day and slept 4. In 2018, we had a daughter. David quit entirely to take care of the baby. In reality, he stayed home gaming and scrolling social media. I'd just given birth and still had to return to work after 10 weeks of maternity leave, because if we missed payments, the bank would foreclose. I remember the sleepless nights, holding my crying baby because she was hungry, while David snored beside me. I remember delivering food in heavy snowfall just to earn an extra $200 for interest. I remember meals that were nothing but instant noodles so I could save for diapers. David kept saying, "I'm looking for a big opportunity. Just hang on a little longer." And I believed him. I was stupid enough to believe him. But David wasn't poor. He was never truly poor after 2018. I just didn't know it yet. And David's biggest mistake was forgetting about that 2016 authorization, the paper that would now give me access to everything he'd been hiding. David's change happened slowly, like a frog being boiled as the water warms. At first, I didn't notice. I just assumed he was genuinely struggling, and I needed to be his support. Around 2019, David suddenly found a big opportunity. He said he'd landed a long-term freelance project for a California tech company, working remotely. The pay is great, but they pay by milestone, so sometimes it's delayed by a few months, he explained. I was thrilled, thinking things were finally about to get better. But that paycheck never showed up in our joint account. David said, "I keep a separate business account so taxes don't get complicated. You just handle the house stuff. I'll make it up later." And I kept handling it. I worked even more overtime, took weekend accounting clients, and even signed up for Uber Eats on nights after our daughter fell asleep. Some months I made an extra $3,000 just to cover bank interest and our daughter's preschool tuition. Meanwhile, David started to change. First, it was small things. A brand new Apple Watch he claimed he financed cheap. Then an iPhone Pro Max he needed for work. After that came short business trips to San Francisco or New York, paid out of his pocket, with the excuse that the company reimburses later. I didn't ask much, because I was juggling 2 jobs. But slowly, more strange signs appeared. In 2021, David started coming home later, with a trace of expensive men's cologne on him. He said he was meeting old friends. I found bills from a secondary credit card he hid in a drawer, charges at upscale restaurants, boutique hotels, and one $2,000 line item for a couple's spa service. When I asked, he snapped, "You always doubt me. I'm trying to make money for this family and you keep stressing me out. I stayed quiet. Not because I was weak, because I was raising a small child, carrying debt, and I didn't want my family falling apart over suspicion. But David's contempt became more and more obvious. In 2022, when I was exhausted from overwork and got pneumonia, spent a week in the hospital, David didn't take care of me. He complained instead. You being in the hospital made me handle everything myself. My work got delayed. Can you get better faster? When I got discharged, the hospital bill was $8,000. David said, I'm waiting on a client payment, front it for now, and I'll pay you back. I had to drain my savings and put more on my credit cards. That same year, David started hinting that, you work too hard. Maybe you should quit and stay home with our kid. I'll take care of it. But in reality, he didn't take care of anything besides sitting on the sofa gaming or working on his laptop late into the night. I started seriously suspecting something in September 2024. That day, I was cleaning David's desk, looking for tax invoices. In a drawer that was barely locked, I found a bank envelope addressed to David, our home address. But the account name read, David Thompson, Private Investment Account. I assumed it was marketing mail, but when I opened it, I froze. It was a quarterly statement from Chase Private Banking. Account balance, $4.2 million. Monthly recurring deposits from a tech company I'd never heard of. And a note line, dividend payout and bonus from shares in Company X. My hands shook as I held the paper. David was out meeting a friend. I photographed everything, then put it back exactly where it had been. That night, David came home in an unusually good mood. He brought a $300 bottle of red wine and said, I got lucky with a small win today. Let's celebrate. I smiled and poured the wine, but my mind was spinning. $4.2 million. While I was struggling with $450,000 in mortgage debt, while I was skipping meals to buy milk for our child, while I was working myself into the ground. David had hidden it from me for 5 years. He wasn't poor, he was rich, very rich, and he let me carry everything. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't accuse him or start a scene. I just quietly started collecting. First, I remembered the 2016 authorization. I pulled the old file from our bank safe deposit box, a full copy of the financial power of attorney David had signed so I could be the primary borrower. It included a clause. I unconditionally authorize my wife, Emily Thompson, to access, manage, and transfer funds from any bank account currently or in the future in my name, with no limit on the amount, without any further consent. David signed it back then because he was desperate to get the mortgage approved. He didn't read. He treated it like paperwork. But under Illinois law, that authorization was still valid because it had never been revoked, and it included future accounts. I started moving in silence. I contacted the bank through the app, using old login information David had shared. He still reused the same passwords. I tried accessing the private account. It worked. The balance was now $5.1 million, higher thanks to stock investments. I didn't move the money right away. I collected evidence first. I printed statements from the last 5 years. I screenshot every transaction, luxury spending, private yacht rentals in Miami, a $40,000 Rolex, business class flights to Vegas with friends. There was even a $150,000 transfer to a woman named Jessica, consultant, who I guessed was his mistress. I saved everything to a hidden USB drive and backed it up to my own cloud. I quietly hired a divorce attorney to ask, was this power of attorney legal for moving assets? The answer, yes, as long as I could show it was marital property, because it was earned during the marriage, and the action was meant to protect my rights. For the past 15 months, I stayed absolutely silent. I still worked myself to the bone, still paid the bills, still cooked, still smiled at David. He grew more arrogant by the day, bought a new Tesla but registered it under a separate company name, took weekend trips alone that I knew were with Jessica. He thought I was stupid. He thought I would be his cash cow forever. But he'd forgotten that 2016 authorization, the thing that would now become the sharpest blade. And over the last 3 months, I'd quietly transferred $4.8 million from that account into a private investment fund in my name, all completely legal under the power of attorney. I left exactly $300,000, just enough for him to think the money was still there. David had no idea. Not until today, when he served me the divorce papers. He thought he'd take the house, leave me with the debt, and disappear with a massive fortune. He was wrong. My husband pretended to be broke for 10 years so I'd carry all the debt. I accidentally found his secret account with $5 million. Part 3. Back to the cold living room on the afternoon of January 2nd, 2026. David was still sitting there, legs crossed, that smug smile glued to his face. Lauren tapped her pen against the table, eyes sharp as she calculated how much longer it would take before I signed and they could leave. "Have you thought it through?" David asked, in a tone that sounded like pity. "I don't want to make this hard on you. Sign, and we'll go our separate ways. You're still young. You can find a job. $100,000 in support is enough for you to start over." Lauren cut in, professional but threatening. "Under Illinois law, property acquired during the marriage is marital property. But with the mortgage debt primarily in your name, the court will prioritize division to protect the party with more stable income. That is, David, if you don't sign this agreement, we'll take you to court. You'll lose the house, lose the car, and you'll still have to pay attorney's fees. Can you handle that?" They were backing me into a corner. They knew I was financially exhausted, at least on paper. They knew I'd carried debt for 10 years. They thought I would panic, cry and beg, or at least accept this terrible deal just to keep a little. David even took a sip of coffee from my favorite mug, the mug I'd bought with side job money. He let out a fake sigh. "Emily, don't make this harder than it has to be. I need a fresh start. You do too. I know you're tired of carrying everything." A fresh start. With Jessica, the mistress he sent money to every month. With the $5 million he'd kept hidden. I glanced at the wall clock. 3:25 p.m. Only 35 minutes until the bank shut down same-day transactions, but I'd already finished everything last week. I slowly closed the file. The soft thud of the cover sounded like a judge's gavel. "David," I said, so calm it surprised even me. I didn't look at Lauren. I stared straight into my husband's eyes. "You really want to do this today? You want to keep the house? You want to leave me with all the debt?" David sneered, twisting his wedding ring. "Yes. Fair, isn't it? I stayed home with our kid, sacrificed my career so you could work. Now I deserve to be compensated." Lauren nodded along. "My client has legitimate grounds. You should accept this generous offer." I leaned down to grab my old leather briefcase, the one I'd carried since the first days of our marriage. I set it on the table and popped the lock with a dry click. "Before I sign anything," I said, gentle but ice sharp, "I think you two should look at this, because if you don't, Lauren, you could lose your license for giving your client misleading advice." Lauren frowned but reached for it anyway. She thought it was a bluff. David laughed out loud. "What are you pulling now? Give it here." I slid the briefcase toward them. Inside was only one old sheet of paper, A notarized copy of the 2016 Financial Power of Attorney, carefully kept in a rigid plastic sleeve. Lauren picked it up and read first. At first she skimmed, bored. Then her pupils tightened. She flipped to the signature page and started reading line by line, slower. "What is this?" David snapped, yanking it from her hands. I didn't wait for him to finish reading. I spoke, voice smooth and baited. "David, do you remember 2016? The year you were truly unemployed, drowning in credit card debt, and we needed a mortgage to buy this place? You signed this power of attorney so the bank would approve the loan because your credit score was terrible." David squinted at the line I'd highlighted long ago. "I, David Thompson, unconditionally and irrevocably authorize my wife, Emily Thompson, to access, manage, transfer, and handle any bank accounts currently or in the future in my name, with no limit on the amount, without any further consent from me." He laughed and waved it off. "Oh, please, ancient history. That was just mortgage paperwork. We're divorcing now, so it's not valid anymore. Don't try to scare me with some stupid piece of paper." Lauren's face had gone pale. She put a hand on David's shoulder and whispered, "David, stop." But David stayed confident. "Lauren, look, my wife is trying to bluff. That paper is 10 years old. It has to be expired. Do you think I'm stupid? I'm keeping the house, I'm keeping the money, and you only get $100,000, like the deal says?" I smiled, the kind of smile that made Lauren shiver. She could feel the air change. "David," I said, voice freezing, "you're wrong. This power of attorney was notarized, and it has no expiration clause. Under Illinois law, it's still valid because you never revoked it. And most importantly, it applies to every account, current or future." I opened my laptop and turned the screen toward them. On it was the statement for David's private banking account. Current balance, $300,000. "See?" I said. "This is the account you hid from me for 5 years. $5.1 million from company shares, dividends, bonuses. Money earned during the marriage, which means marital property." David snorted. "Did you hack my account? That's illegal. I'll sue you." "No hacking required," I said. "I used the power of attorney you signed in 2016. Every transaction was legal." Lauren's voice shook. "David, she's right. If the power of attorney is still valid, she has the authority to transfer money to protect marital assets before a divorce. Illinois courts have recognized this in many cases." David still didn't believe it. He burst out laughing. "Fine, transfer it. Even if you move it all, I'll still keep the house, keep the Tesla, and you'll still carry the debt. I'll live just fine with Jessica." He thought I was bluffing. He thought the money was still untouched. He didn't know I'd moved $4.8 million a long time ago into an investment fund in my name, with profits growing every day. And now it was time to show him what a real nightmare looked like. David was still laughing, but the grin started to twist when he saw the laptop screen. The $300,000 balance was clear as day. He turned to Lauren. "What kind of lawyer are you? Tell me, how does this piece of paper have any power? I'm going to sue her for stealing my money." Lauren didn't answer right away. She flipped through the notarized copy, pale as the page itself. "David, this is a durable power of attorney. It doesn't expire unless it's revoked in a notarized document. And she acted within her authority to protect marital property before divorce. Illinois case law has recognized this." David slammed the table. "Bullshit! That money is mine. I earned it from my own projects. It has nothing to do with her." I stood up, walked around the table, and came closer. My voice dropped, cold. "David, you're wrong. Money earned during the marriage is marital property under Illinois law. You hid it and let me carry the debt while you built up $5 million from company shares. Shares in the company you claimed was late paying your salary. But that's not even all. I pulled a thick red folder from the bottom of my briefcase. The label read, Evidence of Off-Book Transactions 2019-2025. I tossed it onto the table. It hit with a heavy thump. Inside are 220 pages of statements, invoices, and confirmation emails from the private bank. In total, you spent more than $800,000 on luxury, Rolex watches, business class flights, yacht rentals, and especially $250,000 transferred to Jessica Harper, the consultant you always went to meet on weekends. David's face flushed red, but he tried to bluff. It's my money. I can spend it however I want. No, I cut in. It's marital money. And worse, you filed taxes separately without fully reporting dividends and bonuses. I have an email where you told your tax accountant to keep this part secret so the tax rate stays lower. That's federal tax evasion, a criminal offense, potentially 3 to 7 years in prison and hundreds of thousands in penalties. Lauren's voice was rough. David, if she sends this file to the IRS, you'll be investigated immediately. Your remaining assets will be frozen. You don't have the money to pay lawyers for a long war. I glanced at the clock. 3:45 p.m. David, you have two options. Listen carefully. Option 1. You sign the new divorce agreement I already prepared. You give up any ownership rights to the house. I'll refinance it in my name only. You walk away with nothing. No support, no assets. I won't pursue the tax evasion. I won't send the file to the IRS. And I'll keep your affair quiet so you can save face. You keep the $300,000 left in the account. Consider it a goodbye gift. Option 2. You refuse. I immediately email this red folder to the IRS and the Illinois Department of Revenue. Draft already saved. Your accounts get frozen today. The divorce drags on for 2 to 3 years and you lose everything. House, money, freedom. And Jessica definitely won't wait for you to get out of prison. I uncapped my fountain pen and placed it on the new agreement, the one my lawyer had drafted the week before. You have 60 seconds to decide, freedom with $300,000 or prison and bankruptcy? David looked at me, then at Lauren. His eyes begged for help. But Lauren only lowered her head and whispered, David, sign. This is your only way out. If the IRS gets involved, you lose everything, and I can't represent you anymore because of a conflict of interest. David swallowed hard. His face pinched, aging 10 years in minutes. He stared at the agreement, then at the deadly red folder. But $300,000? He stammered, pathetic. I just put down $50,000 on a condo with Jessica. I still owe $80,000 in credit card debt. That money isn't even enough to pay what I owe. I crossed my arms and leaned back. That's your financial management problem, David. Not mine. You've spent marital money recklessly for 10 years. Now it's time you learn how to live in reality. What about the Tesla? David grasped for anything. Let me keep it. At least I need a car. I let out a short, dry laugh. That car is registered under your separate company, but that company was created with marital money. I'll report it to the IRS if you don't sign. However, I'll be generous. There's still that old Honda Civic in the garage. I'll transfer it to you as a severance package. David's face burned with humiliation. From a Tesla to an old Civic, from a secret millionaire to a nobody. You're evil, Emily, he hissed through clenched teeth. No, David, I shot back. Evil is letting your wife carry the debt and work herself to exhaustion while you hide $5 million to bankroll your mistress. What I'm doing today isn't evil, it's justice. 10 seconds, I said, flat. David's hand shook as he gripped the pen. He looked at me one last time, eyes full of hatred and fear. He knew I wasn't bluffing. He knew I would send the file the moment he walked out that door. Scratch. Scratch. David's sloppy signature went onto the new divorce agreement. He signed away his rights to the house, handed over the Civic, and agreed not to contest anything. Lauren stamped and notarized it fast, like she was afraid I might change my mind. Done, Lauren said, sliding the paperwork back to me, drained. Emily, we're finished. I checked every signature. Perfect. I pushed the $300,000 check I'd already prepared across the table to David. Here you go. Try not to blow it all at once. David snatched it, crumpled it in his fist, and shot to his feet. He stormed out, footsteps pounding like he was running from a fire. Lauren stood, buttoned her suit jacket. She gave me a small bow, respect she hadn't had at the start. Emily, she said, you're a formidable opponent. If you ever need a lawyer in the future, call me. Thank you, Lauren, I said with a cold smile. But I prefer lawyers who read the power of attorney before they advise their clients. Lauren forced a smile, grabbed her briefcase, and left. The door slammed shut. Silence filled the room. But this time it was the silence of victory. 14 months have passed since that fateful afternoon of January 2nd, 2026. And I have to admit, life has never been this good. After David signed the agreement and ran out like a wounded animal, I immediately refinanced the house into my name alone. I paid down the remaining mortgage with profits from the $4.8 million investment fund, money that has now grown to nearly $6.2 million thanks to steady market growth and the smart investing decisions I taught myself during all those sleepless nights. I didn't keep everything the same. I sold the old house, the place full of fake memories, and bought a new penthouse in downtown Chicago, with a sparkling view of Lake Michigan. It's spacious and modern, with a private gym and a big balcony large enough for weekend barbecues. My daughter has her own room now, with a princess bed and a smart study desk. She attends the best international school, and I have time to pick her up every day instead of racing deadlines. My career took off too. I left my old accounting job and started a personal finance consulting firm focused on helping divorced women protect their assets. My first clients were friends I met through a support group on Facebook. Now my company has 8 employees, and last quarter's revenue topped $500,000. I travel, real travel, Hawaii last summer, and next up is Europe with my daughter. I'm not alone. I'm dating a decent man, a software engineer who's genuinely hardworking and financially transparent. He knows the whole story, and he respects me for the strength it took. And David? Karma hit him faster than I expected. 3 weeks after the divorce, Jessica, the beautiful mistress he dreamed of, a fresh start with, dumped him the moment she learned he only had $300,000 left and a mountain of credit card debt. I heard through mutual friends that she screamed over the phone, "You lied to me. You said you were rich," and then blocked him everywhere. 2 months later, Jessica was publicly dating a real businessman on Instagram, posting yacht photos and diamond rings. David lost everything. His wife, his child. The court only allowed weekend visitation because of his history of irresponsibility. His home, his money, and even his mistress. He had to sell the Tesla to pay debts, then moved into a cheap studio rental out in the suburbs. But karma wasn't done. 6 months later, because he tried filing late taxes to hide part of old dividend income, the IRS still ran a random review and found irregularities. David was fined $150,000 for earlier small-scale tax evasion, starting with just $300,000 after old debts and penalties. He was completely wiped out. The court declared Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and whatever assets remained were liquidated. The morning before yesterday, I was driving my newly purchased Porsche Taycan and stopped at a red light downtown. I happened to glance into the next lane. There, in an old Uber. He drives for Uber for a living now. I saw David. He looked 10 years older. Flecks of gray in his hair, scraggly beard, wrinkled t-shirt. He was hurriedly biting into a cheap McDonald's burger while waiting for the light, eyes glued to the Uber app to grab the next ride. An average of $20 an hour after gas and platform fees. Less than 1/10 of what he used to hide from me. From a secret millionaire sitting at home playing games, he now had to race the clock, driving passengers through Chicago's sleet and snow just to earn a few dollars. The irony is, sometimes he probably drives people to the very building where my consulting firm is. I watched him through my sunglasses. He didn't recognize me, or he pretended not to look at the luxury car beside him. The light turned green. I pressed the gas and glided forward, leaving the past in my rearview mirror. I wasn't gloating. I just felt lighter. Balance had returned. Justice doesn't always come from a courtroom. Sometimes it comes from the very papers arrogant people once signed without reading. My story ends here, but the lesson is for all of you, men or women, married or single. Never sign anything without reading it carefully. A power of attorney that seemed harmless years ago can become the weapon that protects you 10 years later. A contract isn't just paperwork, it's your financial lifeline. Always understand every line of fine print. Don't confuse silence with weakness. When you're betrayed and exploited, your instinct is to scream or run. But stay quiet, smile, and collect evidence. Your enemy wants you to lose control so they can grab you by the throat. The winner is the one with the most complete data. Always protect your own finances, even in marriage. Don't hand someone else the keys to your life, even if you love them most. Have your own account, your own financial knowledge, and a backup plan. That isn't distrust. That's self-respect. If you're in a situation like mine, financially exploited, manipulated by fake poverty, robbed of your youth for nothing, don't despair. Wipe your tears, stand up, and start collecting. Sometimes you have to take justice with your own hands. I'm Emily. Thank you for listening to my story. If you found this story satisfying and justice was served, leave a like and comment "Justice Served" below. And don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next sweet revenge stories.